It's Don't At Me. I'm Chad Withrow, obviously not Dan Dakich, so welcome to the show today. We got a good one for you. Armando Salguero of OutKick.com. He is going to join us here, in fact, right about right now, because he's going to co-pilot with me. He's our favorite Florida man, Armando Salguero, NFL media member extraordinaire, on with us right now from sunny Florida. Armando, how are you today, sir?
Chad, you promised to do a Dan Dakich thing and wear a T-shirt, and I'm very disappointed that you did not go the extra mile with the T-shirt. You actually dressed up for the occasion.
I blame laundry, Armando, more than anything else, because I wanted to wear the Joe Kinsey-inspired Screen Caps at OutKick Mow Like a Champion Today shirt in honor of Thursday Night Mowing League. And I started looking around the house and said, oh, it's not clean right now, so I'll wear what I normally wear for the show. This will also, I'm not a stage actor, so it would require a costume change for my show that I'm going to have here in about 5 hours with Hot Mike, with Jonathan Hutton. So I decided I didn't want to change shirts also for that show. But I appreciate you pointing that out. Next time, Armando, that we fill in and host this show, I promise you I'm going to find an Indiana basketball T-shirt and wear it just so we keep the spirit of Dan Dakich alive.
Make sure it has holes and that it's 30 years old, because that would be true Dan, true Dan, I guess, history and up to his personality.
Armando, I love how you always, as the kids say, keep it 100 with your backdrop. You join our show and you've got a different NFL stadium in the background, and now you've got a nice, is that a sunset or a sunrise of the ocean that I see behind you right now?
Bro, so being from Florida, I guarantee you it's not a sunrise because that happens.
That's true.
In the 6 o'clock hour.
Yep.
And Mondo is very much, snoring up a storm in the 6 o'clock hour with his REM sleep. So this is definitely a sunset, and it's a beautiful Florida sunset. And, it feels like this show is the sunset of my career. So, yeah, here I am.
So another quick review here. I'm Chad Withrow. I host Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow every afternoon on the OutKick Network. You are on the OutKick Network right now. Don't be surprised if you're watching on YouTube at this moment and you don't see Dan Dakich. We are filling in for Dan Dakich today, who I do believe is actually at his wife's daughter, what do they call that? Stepdaughter, I think it is the relationship. At her graduation at Harvard is why he's gone right now. So we wish them the very best, and congratulations to that young lady for her Harvard degree as well. I'm filling in for Dan today. Armando Salguero is alongside. We got Ross Tucker coming up, NFL analyst, a little bit later, here in about 20 minutes. Damon Bruce is going to talk NBA with us later in the show as well. But we got plenty of things to get to. And let's start with someone who's always making news. That's Deion Sanders. I can't quite tell if Deion Sanders is the ultimate truth teller in college football or if he's the ultimate fraud in college football. And he had some pointed comments to make about players demanding money and wanting to get paid like professional athletes, but yet how they may be coddled at times. Here is Colorado head coach Deion Sanders.
So this day and age, it seems like these kids are criticized for everything, and they've got people pumping them up whenever they're doing well. How do you prepare them for the highs and lows, especially in the 24-hour news cycle? And so just one.
Yeah, but you can't want a bag of money. You want to get paid like a professional, but you want to be treated like a child. That don't work. If you want to be compensated like a pro, the media now, they're going to treat you like a pro. You got kids out there working their butts off at these local restaurants, these local businesses, right? Just to make it through college. Then you got a kid coming in here with a luxury car that really ain't done nothing. Then he mess around and drop a ball that is decisive in the game, and you think they're gonna feel sorry for him? That don't work like that. If you're gonna be motivated by the claps, you gotta be motivated by the boos. So you shouldn't even be motivated. You just gotta learn how to rock steady. That's when your staff and your support staff and all the resources that we have in this wonderful university is there to take care of you, to look out for you, and to guide you and to lead you in the right direction. And be corrective, not passive, and not even abrasive. But we let them know, hey man, It's going to be some ups and downs, but you got to get your butt back up.
Armando, you're someone who's always motivated by the boos. I know that your haters fuel you daily, and that's how you get so much work done every single day. As someone motivated by the boos, what did you make of what Deion Sanders had to say?
I love Deion Sanders, man. I didn't love when he kicked one of his players out of the weight room for wearing white socks. He said, you only wear black socks, and, we only wear black socks, and this kid had on white socks, and he, booted him from the weight room. So I didn't love that. But the idea of getting paid like a pro, so you got to be treated like a pro, yeah, I've been there and done that because – so, Chad, once upon a time, I covered the University of Miami in their heyday from 1987 to 1990, which was part of their heyday. But that's when I was there. They won 2 national championships. And I remember making conscious decisions as a reporter, a member of the media, that when something went wrong and these kids did stuff wrong, I couldn't go at them in the newspaper like I go at professionals. Professionals are getting paid. These guys were going to school at that time. Well, at Miami, they were going to school to graduate football, but they're going to school to get an education typically. And so you have to tone it back because they're not pros. You gotta tamp it down a little bit. But now, didn't Bryce Young make $800,000 last year? Bro, you're going to get treated like a pro. He's absolutely right.
Well, and look, the reports and rumors are that Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee, a 5-star quarterback, signed a deal for close to $2 million a year while he's at Tennessee. Whether that's completely true or not, I have my doubts, but I do believe he's making over $1 million to sign with Tennessee and play college football. By the way, I love that Miami is the example of players that are going to school for their education because, you bring that up. That's always sort of been the knock, right, is that, these guys are borderline professional athletes at the heights of the sport. Now, no one would ever say that about Colorado over the last 30 years, not since Bill McCartney and those Colorado teams that won a national championship have we been saying that Colorado Buffalo players are like professional athletes. But I do want to get into this whole concept of coddling the college athlete, right? Because you're a journalist, Armando. You covering the Miami Hurricanes, that was how you treated the players. You held the coaches accountable. You could write about them and cover them in a certain way because they're getting paid. But the understanding was the players aren't getting paid. They're not on salary. So you soft shoe it a little bit around the players. You could still be critical. They're adults. They're over 18 years old. But it was a different way in which you covered them. I hate this mindset, and I call it the Jay Billis effect. Jay Billis believes he is an absolutist when it comes to college athletes rule, everyone else sucks. And everything that the college athlete wants, they should get. Everything they argue, they're right about. The big bad coaches, the big bad administration, the big bad NCAA is 1,000% wrong all the time, and they never, ever get it right. I don't believe in that thought process at all. Now, is the NCAA wrong more than the college athlete? Yes. But is the college athlete always right? No. But if you're going to start signing NIL deals and paying these guys, I am fully on board with what Deion Sanders is saying that, well, that gives us coaches the right to treat them more like professional athletes, and it gives all the fans, all the media members the same right. So I don't want to fall into this trap of college athletes good, everyone else bad, that so many media members I feel like fall into.
Deion Sanders good, and he's good for the product at Colorado. He's good for the program at Colorado. The man hasn't coached game 1 yet, and already I can tell you they're better than they were without him. And the fact that he is willing to speak truth to power, truth to his boosters, obviously, truth to his players, even the ones wearing white socks. It's like he is a breath of fresh air. I would tell you this. This is not Deion Sanders' final stop in college football. And I wouldn't be surprised if, 10 years from now, we're talking about Deion Sanders back in the NFL, because he is a man and he treats those guys like men. And up until now, he's gotten results.
It's a fascinating question, Armando, to pose. Will it work in the NFL, this style? I think it would because of who he is. Would it work at, let's say, an Auburn or an SEC power or a Big Ten power? What if Deion Sanders was the next coach at Michigan? Would this whole shtick and this level of honesty work there? But, that's a funny example because Jim Harbaugh is pretty honest also and says some things out of line as well.
Jim Harbaugh is borderline weird.
Yeah, borderline crazy for sure. But look, I think with some of the things Deion Sanders has said and done and the way he's come in and just told everyone to hit the road and is completely resetting the program, that's not normal thinking with college football coaching. That's not a normal way of doing things, and he's going to say whatever he feels. That works at Colorado because they were so bad under Carl Durrell. They were so bad even leading into Carl Durrell. They'll take anything. So any pop they can get of personality with his celebrity that's going to lead to recruits, they're all for. I don't know that it works the same way at an established power if he were to get promoted and go to a better program at some point. But I'm with you right now. I mean, I think this is the perfect spot for him to try this Coach Prime experiment at the highest level of college football at a Power 5 program. Yes, the Pac-12 is still in the Power 5, which I know surprises many. They may not be there for long if they can't get a media deal done, but they are in the Power 5 right now. And if it works here, Armando, what would you think about Coach Prime coaching the Seattle Seahawks or another NFL team?
Yeah, I think that's 2 steps down the road, right? I think the next step would be AAA, which is the SEC. And some team in the SEC or FSU. I mean, I don't mean to fire the FSU coach out of hand, but that's where he went. I was going to say went to class, but not really. That's where he was on campus. Let's say that. That's where Deion attended practices. Let's say that.
Armando, I didn't play, a major sport in college. My athletic career ended at a relatively high level in high school, but that's as far as I made it. And I was a great flag football quarterback and a great flag football, slow pitch softball and basketball player, but that was it. So I didn't have the excuse of not going to class. But I will say there was one semester where I took an accounting class, and I decided to not go for the first month or 2 months of the year to class and just tried to do everything by reading the textbook. And I got to study for that first exam, that midterm exam. And I'm there with all my buddies in the library. I popped open the book, started to study the material, and I thought to myself, this isn't going to work. That's the one time I just opted out of a class. I signed out of it. I took whatever the half grade was and said, I'm out. I'm not going to get this 3 hours this semester. That's kind of what I guess Deion Sanders, he's not trying to get his kids to do that, but that's sort of the, college football player way at times.
Bro, look at you. You're such a jock.
I have no idea where that story was going other than me just to admit my own stupidity. I don't know where it really landed there, but I'll try to segue it into this. If you can
Wait a second. You're the guy that tied me up to the goalposts in high school. That's you.
Yeah.
You did that.
No, I was more of the empathetic jock in high school, right? I was friends with all groups, right? Like the goth kids, I was good with them. I was good with the geeks. I was good with every group. I was never the best in any group. Wasn't the best at being the jock. Wasn't the best at being the popular kid. Wasn't the best at being the geek. But I was kind of in with every single group. That's a good place to be. Sort of in the middle of every group. You got a through line. You got buddies. You've got associates that are out there in every single group. That's where I tried to remain in high school and did a pretty good job of that. I feel like Lane Kiffin probably was definitely a jock. He played quarterback at Fresno State. But I feel like he's a guy who could get along with everyone while he was in school. And one thing that can help you do that is being able to shred on the guitar. I don't know that Lane Kiffin can shred based on that video, but he's certainly willing to do some things outside the box a little bit, Armando. We've talked about that with Deion Sanders. I feel like Lane Kiffin, obviously not the player, doesn't have the celebrity of Deion Sanders, but he's a guy who has now, in this second act of his career, and you know about the first act with the Raiders, the second act, he's made a name for himself by being willing to be silly as a college football coach. What do you make about this? What do you make of this second act of Lane Kiffin's career?
I think Lane Kiffin is an elite coach. And, there's going to be pushback on that, right? Because he hasn't won a national championship. Well, guess what? He did when he was at Alabama. I mean, he obviously wasn't the head coach, but the dude was the offensive coordinator, and they were pretty good when he was there. He turned FAU, which was down the road from my house in Boca Raton. He turned them into a program that mattered. They were relevant. And he obviously turned it into, jobs that were promotions. I don't know that we have the sound of Lane Kiffin playing that guitar, which would be amazing. But if he can play that guitar, I hope he comes up with a song that he can write songs, because he needs to write a song about his running game. He needs to write a song about the number 2 running game in the nation. And he needs to write a song about his running back. Is it Quishon Judkins or Judkins?
Yep, Judkins.
Judkins.
Yep.
So the dude, Judkins, 1,567 yards last year, right?
Yep.
16 touchdowns, right?
Yep.
Lane, write a Heisman song about your running back, my brother. That's what you got to do. Sing that.
And what we're going to do today, Armando, we're going to tie everything back in. I found a way to land that story about me dropping out of the accounting class. This ties right back into where we started with Deion Sanders and NIL, because Quinshon Judkins entered the transfer portal after the year, and the assumption was, this guy who's from the state of Alabama, that Alabama and Auburn overlooked, he's going to go back home now, leave Ole Miss, go to one of these powers, and he's going to go play for them. And instead, he put his name in that portal, and that got the Ole Miss boosters aligned, and they decided to pay him, I'm sure, signed an NIL deal, stayed at Ole Miss. The portal can work many ways. It doesn't just mean that you're leaving. It can also mean that you put your name in there and you get your current program in school to up the ante so you stay there. That was a big recruiting win in a weird way for Lane Kiffin this offseason. So we'll come up with that song that he should be playing. By the way, that was a video that we showed of Lane Kiffin at his daughter's graduation party playing the guitar to some 80s hair metal. Ross Tucker, I'm willing to bet, knows a thing or two about 80s hair metal. NFL analyst, host of his own podcast. We're going to break down and talk some NFL headlines with Ross Tucker when we come back. This is Don't At Me on the OutKick Network.
Daniel Penny, the former Marine who stepped in to restrain the violent vagrant Jordan Neely, is now looking down the barrel of 15 years behind bars for manslaughter. He was arraigned last week, put in cuffs, and made to do a humiliating perp walk, though he turned himself in, though he's been cooperated through the whole process, though what he did was in the defense of others. But Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg doesn't care. He's not a guardian of the law. He's an activist installed in his position by George Soros. Nothing more, nothing less. He doesn't make moves based on law. He makes moves based on the mob, and once again, the mob wins. And Jordan Neely's family, well, they hope to turn his death into dollar signs. Jordan Neely was a vagrant living on the streets. Where was his family then? Now they care? Convenient, that's real convenient. Neely has been struggling for years, has been mentally ill for years, and violent for years, and this time, it caught up to him. Did he deserve to die? No. But are subway passengers and good and decent people supposed to give a mentally ill man spouting death threats the benefit of the doubt? Should Daniel Penny have sat his happy ass down and waited for Neely to punch an elderly woman again or kidnap a child again? If Bragg did his job, New York City residents wouldn't be put in this situation in the first place. But Bragg is sending a message loud and clear. Do not mess with his mayhem. Do not question the lawless hellhole he's created. Do not be bold and do not be brave. Let it happen. Let the country go to hell and let innocent people pay the price. These liberals want men to devolve into purse-holding cowards. They want you all emasculated and neutered because real men are the last remaining barrier these communists must eliminate in their quest to destroy everything around us. Well, Daniel Penny did something. He stood up, he acted. So I stand with Daniel Penny and every other man who has the fortitude and the character to protect and defend the vulnerable. In a world full of cowards, be a Daniel Penny.
We're back. Don't at me with Dan Dakich. I'm not Dan Dakich. I am Chad Withrow, although I have read Season on the Brink by John Feinstein. Excellent book. That book, Dan Dakich, a big character within that book. Armando Salguero is a character. He's the OutKick.com, senior NFL writer for OutKick.com. He is co-piloting this show with me today. And now we're going to say hello to Ross Tucker, NFL analyst, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, also with myfrontpagestory.com. Ross is one of the very best, as Armando applauds. Ross on with us right now. I do as well. Ross, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good to see both you guys. I think, Chad, I saw you at the Super Bowl. Armando, I can't remember the last time I saw you, but I've been thinking about you as your boy Mike McDaniel's everywhere, banging drums and every game. It's unbelievable, by the way. Like, Mike McDaniel is acting exactly how I feel like I would want to act if I was a head coach. Like, send me to some new city. I want to be the guy at the hockey game. I want to be the guy at the basketball game. I want to be the guy that all the fans are like, hey, what's up, man? Like, I'm enjoying every second of that honeymoon period. Ross, if I ever get a head coaching gig, which I will not.
Ross, Armando makes himself very scarce. He's always in a cave somewhere working and writing. when at the Super Bowl. We're on Radio Row out and about all the time, so it was great seeing you there and great seeing you on this show as well. We will talk about in a piece Armando wrote at OutKick coming up about the NFL owners and where their loyalties truly lie, and that is with money. And certainly, Ross, when you look at the money coming in from Amazon and Prime Video for Thursday night, that's a huge catalyst for this decision by the owners to start to flex in late season Thursday night football games. We had Logan Ryan on my show 2 days ago in studio, and he said this is a big hot button issue with the players right now, and it's what everyone's talking about. The players don't like it. The owners love the money that's coming in. What do you make of this decision by the owners to start to flex in Thursday night football games?
Well, what's funny about Chad is that anytime I say what I'm about to say, I'll get people that'll hit me up on social media, dude, you're such a shill for the owners, which I never really know what that means. I don't get anything from the owners. I don't know the owners. They don't give me anything. Like, I don't know what that means. I'm a shill for the owners. Here's what I know, right? First of all, from a player's perspective, everybody always talks about, oh, the money, the owners, the money. You know, you mentioned Logan Ryan, all the money is coming in. The players get just about 49 cents of every dollar that comes in. So let me remind everybody, okay? Anytime the owners do something that's greedy or that's for the money, the players greatly benefit from that. This is a revenue sharing model. It's a collectively bargained agreement. So when they do things to generate more revenue or to make more money, that's good for the players. That raises the salary cap. That's what we want. So that part of it's frustrating to me. Now, listen, if you buy tickets for a game on a Sunday, weeks 13 through 18 or whatever, or week 13 through 17, and they flex that game to Thursday night, that sucks. It does. I'm not going to lie. But let's think about this for a second. First of all, you now know it's a possibility. So if you're only going to buy tickets for one game, maybe don't do weeks 13 through 17 that you know might be flexed to Thursday. Secondly, they're going to give you 28 days advance notice. That's a month. Plenty of time to change your plans. The other thing is, and let's just be honest, right? The NFL decided a long time ago that the television partners were more important than the fans in the stands. A long time ago. And you know what? Right or wrong, financially, they're right. They're right. And I've talked to enough people about this. I had Mike North, the director of broadcasting for the NFL, on my show, the Ross Tucker Podcast. And he thinks it's unlikely that they're going to flex. I mean, they can only do it twice. And it's a month out, guys. So they can't do it unless it's like what they want to have. They don't want to have a dog, right? Like they don't want a terrible game on Thursday night that nobody's excited about, nobody wants to watch. Because to be honest with you, that's not good for anybody. Like that's not good for all of the millions of us that want to watch it on TV. It's not good for the NFL. It's honestly not even good for those teams, right? Like, let's say it's week 11 and, you know, 2 starting quarterbacks got hurt. Nobody wants to see 2 backup quarterbacks on December 12th playing in a meaningless game. And those teams don't even want to be in prime time at that point. They don't want to be showcased as having a garbage season with their backup quarterbacks out there. So, look, totally understand. I don't really get why players care that much about it. To me, it's a positive for the players. It sucks for the fans that end up, having to change their plans. No question.
So I have a hard time having a real visceral response one way or the other to the kickoff change, where you can fair catch it inside the 20 and get the ball to the 25-yard line. But it's one of those things where, the owners will gladly do something to accommodate the money with television while also saying, well, we're doing something else to try to help with player safety. And this is something that'll help with player safety. But Ross, as you know, this also gets that response from players and specifically special teams coaches saying, well, this takes an element out of the game that could end up removing jobs in the league with special teamers, with special teams coaches and their responsibilities as well. Do you have a bigger response to this rule change than I do? Because quite frankly, it doesn't really get me going that much one way or the other.
The only aspect of it that would probably get me going, Chad, is just it's a half measure, right? You know, like 20 years from now, there are not going to be kickoffs in the NFL. It's not going to have them. I mean, so to me, it's like they keep moving the ball, down the path a little bit each year. It doesn't bother me that much, Chad, just because, like you, I watch a lot. I call a college football game every Saturday for CBS. They've had this for the last couple of years. And so you're just kind of used to the fair catch inside the 25. You get the ball at the 25. It does take away for the special teams coaches and the players, but you're probably talking to the wrong guy. I mean, you're looking at a guy whose career ended on kickoff return. Back in the day when they were allowed to have a 4-man wedge in 2007, I smoked this linebacker for the Ravens. Felt awesome. I was like, yeah. When I went like that, my whole arm went numb. And it turns out I herniated the C5, C6 in my neck and bruised my spinal cord. Never played football again. So you're probably talking to the wrong guy in terms of kickoff safety because it is nuts. What we used to do, guys, is nuts. I would be in the meetings, okay? I would be in the meetings, special teams meetings. They would tell us on the wedge, which is outlawed now, you cannot get split. The wedge cannot get split. It was a 4-man wedge. So a 4-man wall of humanity. In the same meeting, guys, they would tell the linebackers and the safeties, you must split the wedge. You have to. You got, I'm in the same meeting, wait. It's like the irresistible force and the immovable object. No wonder we were all getting hurt. And to this day, I have to do neck exercises like this where I look ridiculous to try to lengthen my neck. So I am in favor of anything they can do to make that play safer. Totally get the special teamers that think it might affect how many core special teams guys need to be on the roster. Totally get the special teams coaches. But the reality is they're not going to have kickoffs, probably even in 10 years. If I'm going to criticize anything there, it's just do it. You want to do it. Now I thought it was interesting. Albert Breer said that they need to do things like this because they're concerned about litigation, and to protect themselves from litigation. Well, what does that mean? There's going to be more litigation now because of kickoffs? I need someone to expound upon that for me a little bit.
We're talking to Ross Tucker, who is the host and the star of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. And you can also find his work at myfrontpagestory.com. Ross, the last time we saw each other was at Orchard Park, and I was walking through a snowy, cold as ice parking lot, and you were in your truck leaving. So obviously, it's the reason. I'm sure you had the heater on. This man went to Princeton. He's smart. I went to Miami. I'm dumb. I'm walking. He's driving. That's how that went. Let me ask you about the San Francisco 49ers. So Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy. Where does that end up, Ross?
Yeah, so I think this is one of the most interesting things of the offseason. And honestly, in my mind at this point, the question is, where does Trey Lance get traded and when? I mean, it's hilarious when you hear Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch talk about their quarterbacks. They're like, Brock Purdy, unbelievable. Just so impressed. He's shown he can do it. What a great job, Brock Purdy. Sam Darnold. I mean, they talk about Sam Darnold. I got beat writers in San Francisco saying he might be the best pure thrower the organization's ever had. Joe Montana. Have you seen Steve Young throw a football?
Not bad. He wasn't bad at it.
Hilarious. And then they'll be like, and we also still have Trey Lance. And that's it. That's all they say. I don't know what that young man did, but they definitely don't like him. I thought it was interesting, DeMeco Ryans was in San Francisco the last couple of years. He goes to Houston. They could have used that second pick on somebody else and traded for Trey Lance for peanuts, probably. He didn't want to do it. Rand Carthon is in Tennessee. He's the GM for the Titans. He was in San Francisco ever since they traded for Trey Lance. He could have said, you know what? Tannehill's getting expensive. Let's get Trey Lance for peanuts and have him be the heir apparent. Nope. He wanted to draft Will Levis instead. So when these guys that were in San Francisco and go elsewhere don't seem to have any interest in Trey Lance, that says a lot about a lot. Doesn't seem like he's very long for the 49ers organization, but I think I'm, like a lot of people, just curious to watch him play somewhere for somebody.
Ross, you know that I'm from South Florida, and my sunshine-filled heart loves Dalvin Cook because he's got a sunshine-filled heart from Miami and Central High in Miami. Why don't the Minnesota Vikings love Dalvin Cook like I love Dalvin Cook?
They do. They're just trying to get him to take a pay cut. I mean, that's my read on it, right? I mean, they do. They want him there. They like him. They want him to make less money, and they're trying to get things a little uncomfortable for him. Maybe as they get closer to the season, they'll say, because here's the deal. I gotta be honest with you guys. Like, you can get a lot more guys to take pay cuts than these teams realize. Because I've been in that situation. Right before final cut day. Okay, let's say Dalvin Cook's going to make $10 million this year. Right before final cut day, you say, Dalvin, we need you to take a pay cut till $7 million, right? What will he probably say? No, I don't want to. No, that's BS. Great. Then he's making what? $3 million? Maybe 4 or 5? So is he going to be that upset about it that he's going to cut off his nose to spite his face and cost himself $3 million? I've told teams this, that you can do, and look, players don't want to hear it. It's maybe not the best way to go about business, but it's the fact. You can get players to take pay cuts if you squeeze them at the end of final cut down, because they know these other teams don't have money. These other teams don't have $7 million hanging around to pay Dalvin Cook. So I think he's going to be a running back for the Vikings this year. They're just trying to get him to do it for less money.
Ross, one player that is not willing to take a pay cut is Kevin Byard of the Titans. The safety said no to Rand Carthon, who came in immediately and tried to get him to take a pay cut. Now he's skipping OTAs. I think the skipping of the OTAs is one of the more overplayed stories out there. It's not that big of a deal. But how much do you think that with what you're talking about, how it could be easier to get a lot of guys to take pay cuts, to me, this is more of the John Robinson and Kevin Byard. They were in unison together. He drafted him. New guy comes in, and his first move is to say, this safety's making too much money. And Kevin Byard saying, I'm not the problem here. I'm playing through games. I'm available. I'm good. I'm not taking a pay cut. What do you think about this building Kevin Byard situation now with the Titans?
Well, the thing that intrigues me about it is the Titans made a major mistake a year ago when they traded A.J. Brown.
For sure.
He is a guy you build around in every way. And it's just such a bad look when Vrabel comes out and says, we will not be trading A.J. Brown as long as I'm the head coach. And then they traded him. I mean, either makes Vrabel look either like a liar or ineffectual, right? Meaning he doesn't have the power or the say. Both of which I bet drove him bananas because he and I were teammates in New England in 05 and 06. Now Carthon comes in, and your first move is to try to get Byard, who's been like arguably the Titans' best player, fan favorite, very well respected in the locker room for, 5 years, 7 years now, however long it's been. Try to get him to take a pay cut. These guys, there's certain guys you don't mess with. Kevin Byard, to me, is one of them. At a minimum, maybe not right away when you first get there, if you're Rand Carthon. Because I know this much, Rand Carthon doesn't want one of his first moves to be cutting Kevin Byard, but already it looks bad that they're talking pay cut. I love that Byard basically told him to shove it. Now, listen, they still might do it at final cuts, and Byard might lose some money, and he's got to make that decision when that time comes. But I like for now that Byard said, no, I'm not doing that.
Ross Tucker, he is one of the very best talking NFL, host of the Ross Tucker podcast, also at myfrontpagestory.com. I told Ross before, I'll tell you again, loved your call of the Army-Navy game. I was in a car for most of the game listening. Great job with that. Great job with all your radio and television work and the podcast. Ross, thanks for being our guest today. Really appreciate it, man.
Of course, my pleasure. Great to see you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And Armando, Ross had, I think, a different take than you did with your piece at OutKick.com about NFL owners and their true loyalties and where they lie. We're going to get into that and what this Thursday Night Football flex decision means for the NFL and the message to NFL fans. That's coming up after a quick break. This is Don't At Me on the OutKick Network.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
We're back. Don't at me on the OutKick Network. I'm not Dan Dakich. I'm Chad Withrow. Armando Salguero, senior NFL writer for OutKick.com, is with us right now. Ross Tucker may be a shill for ownership, but Armando Salguero is not with his latest piece at OutKick.com. Ross even said in the answer, Armando, when we asked about Thursday Night Football and the flex scheduling now, he said, look, people are going to accuse me of being in with ownership, but he went through his reasons why it's the right decision and it actually helps players. This, Armando, though, with what you wrote, you come at it not from the player perspective, but what this says to the fans and what ownership is telling them. Can you further elaborate?
So, yes, I can further elaborate.
Yes, thank you. I knew you could. That's why
I can also talk about it.
I always ask why. I always ask the question. I know the answer is yes too. That's the key in this biz. It's just I got to get a yes out of someone, right?
Thank you, Attorney Chad Withrow.
Yes.
So,
by the way, I was better than the attorney for Matt Arise's accuser we had on the other day, who I've never had an attorney filibuster that way. I don't know if you saw the interview. Mostly attorneys say less and want their clients to say less. I don't know right or wrong, but this attorney spoke and spoke and spoke and spoke. It was incredible. So, Armando, now is your chance to speak and speak and speak and speak. Go ahead and please hype up your piece, which, by the way, and all joking aside, was terrific at OutKick. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. I promise not to gas bag.
Yes.
So typically when I talk to Ross, I feel smarter because he's very bright. And God bless him. I've told him that a million times. I told him that in the interview. Dude, he's from Princeton. He's smart. He's Harvard and the Ivy League and all this, Yale and Princeton. Having said that, he misses the point that the decisions that ownership made are football decisions. It's a football decision whether or not the game goes to a free, a fair catch inside the 25, no matter what, the ball goes to the 25. That's not a decision about finances. That's not a decision about networks. That's not a decision that will take or remove money from the owner's hands. I understand that part of the pitch was you're going to be able to avoid legal ramifications if multiple people get concussions and they're going to sue you. Tell me, when was the last time a special teamers sued the NFL individually? That would be never. And the statistics that were used to convince ownership of this was that last year there were 19 concussions on kickoffs in the NFL. What was left out was that only one of those, one concussion in like 1,000 special teams plays, were to the kick returner, which is the person with the ball that you're trying to protect the most. That's why special teams coaches, that's why special teams players, that's why Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, Dan Campbell, Sean Payton said, this is a bad idea. And the same owners that listen to these guys and put their franchises, their billion-dollar franchises in the hands of these guys said, boy, get out of here. I'm making the football decision now. And basically, it's true. They're taking gradually but surely what Ross says is true. They're taking the foot out of football.
And it's a great point, Armando, because it's not like, Ross talking about the wedge, which has been outlawed, how he ended his career with an injury. But it's not like if the injuries aren't coming to the kick returner, it's not as if the players on special teams aren't playing the play out thinking that it's not going to be a fair catch if you're making the fair catch inside the 20-yard line, right? So the play is still happening. It's not people just not going through it. What do you make of what Ross said, though, about let's just stop with the half measures and rip the Band-Aid completely off and remove the kickoff altogether, which is ultimately what the NFL wants to do. Do you believe that's what the NFL ultimately wants and what will happen eventually?
No doubt about it. But the NFL is like government. And the way it is it doesn't take away, it doesn't go from the dollar to the whatever in a day. It's in increments. It takes it away slowly. It doesn't take away your rifle immediately. It takes away your magazine. It takes away, the bump stock, whatever. Increments. And at the end of it all, then they do the final thing, but you've come 80% of the way and you don't recognize that you've given up one thing after another, after another, after another. They do it in increments. They don't just rip the Band-Aid off. They're going to take away this time. They've already signaled they're going to take something else away next time. and there will be 2 more times, and then 10 years down the road, there will be no kickoffs. That's the way the NFL works. It's government in action. And I got to tell you, it works for them because the pushback is you get a new generation of players that are used to it a certain way. They don't remember that there used to be kickoffs. They don't remember that the ball used to go to the 20. They don't remember. Nobody remembers that the goalpost was on, the goal line and not the end line. Nobody remembers that. But there was changes, and new generations of players forget what the previous changes were, and they just accept that it's a small change being made.
And then, like government, the hope would be from the NFL or government that 20 years down the road, you don't even miss it because it's been so long since you had it and it goes away. So I think that's a smart comparison with that one. There's an argument to be made about what's smart in terms of the Thursday night football package. Full disclosure, Armando, I'm selfish when it comes to this. I'm not going and attending a lot of NFL games as a fan. I didn't pay for a ticket for a November, December, Sunday afternoon game that may be flexed out of it. So I'm not someone traveling to a game worried about that. So I'm speaking about this from a purely selfish point of view. I want the best possible matchup in an exclusive Thursday night window. If I'm going to be watching NFL on a Thursday night, I'd rather get the best possible game in that exclusive window. So I'm happy with the move by the owners to allow for a flex schedule on the Prime Video Thursday night football game. But as you wrote, that doesn't really take into consideration those fans who have already purchased tickets, and also how the NFL has been pushing tickets before making this new rule where those games and those tickets purchased, oh, by the way, they could be moved to a different night.
So let's take the fans that are going to the game out of it, particularly the ones that it affects, which is, I would say to you, fans that are coming from out of town on their, buses with wings. And, those are the people that make plans way ahead of time. And they have to fly there on Farm Mule Airlines, and they have to, get there and get hotels. Let's take those people away. Owners who tell you that they changed the kickoff rule for player safety are now telling you that those same players can play 2 Thursday night games, and that one of those that perhaps was scheduled for a Sunday, now you've got 3 days less or 4 days less, whatever the math is from Thursday to Sunday. I've never done it. Math is not my friend. But a few days less, it is a prescription for you're a hypocrite. Don't tell me you're worried about player safety when you're putting your players at risk more often in games where their bodies have not recovered completely from the previous Sunday, because they've only got Sunday night to Thursday night to recover instead of Sunday to Sunday. And don't tell me that you're about player safety when you're doing it multiple times a year now. It just doesn't make sense. Also, I think that the part of the problem with Thursday night games, and believe me, as a fan, as a journalist, as I'm thrilled that there are Thursday night games because it gives me stuff to write about and content and stuff to do on Thursday night, because Thursday night, ever since Friends went off the air, I got nothing to do. So, and Martin, by the way.
Were you not a Seinfeld guy on that Thursday night NBC lineup? Only Friends for you,
I wasn't,
Armando?
and I know I missed out, but I watched Martin, and then sometimes I taped Friends, and that was it.
Friends,
and then I went to.
Hey, I'm not. I like Martin too. Friends, great sitcom back in the day. I got no problems with that either. But the lack of Seinfeld does surprise me. Unfortunately,
now the only thing we have, Chad, is Thursday night football.
Yeah,
and so if the 5 and 9 Tennessee Titans are playing the 7 and whatever Jacksonville Jaguars, dang it, I'm going to watch it because it's a game. And it makes no difference to me that it's the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles against the undefeated whoever. I'm going to watch it anyway.
Jennifer Aniston was the one thing that could get Armando to watch something other than Titans-Jags. And now that that's gone, it's all about whatever the crappy Thursday night football game is. Armando, unfortunate turns, and this is becoming increasingly too predictable with Grizzly star Ja Morant. And the latest after the video in the strip club where he's flashing a gun that got an 8-game suspension. Then he has another video where he's flashing a gun. Now he's indefinitely suspended. Well, recently he put out an Instagram post where he essentially says goodbye to friends, family, his own daughter, and it forced police in Memphis to do a welfare check on Ja Morant. This is becoming a sad story, not necessarily a story of outrage and anger. At first it was for me, just the stupidity of wasted talent with Ja Morant. I'm starting to get a little bit more and more concerned about him. And my question, Armando, is what is the responsibility of the league to help someone that seemingly doesn't want help? Maybe this post is a cry for help versus the league's responsibility to protect themselves and their own image and their brand and to distance themselves from someone that tarnishes that image. How do you balance those two while also trying to do the humane thing and get someone to get help even if they don't want it in the moment?
So, Chad, can we agree that there are a lot of troubled people in our society?
We can
and not
agree
just
on
our
that.
society.
Yes.
Right. I don't believe that having the ability to dunk a basketball and play great defense and have the body length and size and ability and gifts to be a great basketball player excludes you from being troubled. Just like I don't believe that being able to catch a football and run down the field excludes you from being troubled, aka Antonio Brown. Just like I don't believe that being able to hit a curveball, excludes you from being troubled. My point is that these guys, not all of them are just bopping and hopping because they're rich and they're gifted and they can do stuff that earthlings cannot. They have mental issues, psychological issues, emotional issues, sensitivity issues, just like you. Not me, because I don't have any of those, but you. And so they're people. And this guy needs some sort of support system. I don't know that it's the NBA, and I don't think the NBA should want to involve itself in it, because once you involve yourself in it with one guy as a league, now you expose yourself to, again, the legal ramifications of it all. Teammates as individuals can try to reach out if he's got that sort of relationship. I'm hoping he's got family. I'm hoping he has friends. But other than that, man, asking the league to solve this individual problem, first of all, I don't think that's fair to do. Second of all, I don't think that's what the NBA wants to be in the business of.
Smart people have said you can't hide money, and you're right. Money doesn't hide deep-seated emotional, psychological, mental issues, and I fear that's what we may be dealing with right now with Ja Morant. Hopefully he figures it out. Hopefully he doesn't go through with the drive-through therapy is what we called the last time that this happened, and it was kind of just a facade of trying to get help and that things actually changed for him. Things are going to change for us here in a couple minutes because we're going to talk some NBA with Damon Bruce. That's coming up next. This is Don't At Me on the OutKick Network. We're back. Don't At Me with Dan Dakich. I'm Chad Withrow. Armando Salguero co-hosting on this Thursday edition of the show. It's been a lot of fun so far. It's about to get even more fun with Damon Bruce, longtime Bay Area sports talk host. Does a great job talking about the NBA and a lot of other things as well. And Damon is on with us right now. Damon, welcome to the show. That is a beautiful cup you have there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What are we? Is that iced coffee? What are we toasting this morning?
Oh no, it's coffee. It's too early for iced coffee out here. This is coffee.
It's Berman.
Warm coffee. You can't beat it. Iced coffee, far inferior to warm coffee, no doubt about it. The Lakers were not superior to the Denver Nuggets, Damon, in this year's playoffs. And you get LeBron James after the game hinting around maybe this is going to be it. I don't necessarily buy it. What do you think is next for the Lakers? What needs to be done? What will get done for that franchise to get past this level and win another championship?
Well, look, I mean, it obviously all starts with LeBron's decision here. And I think this whole retirement thought bubble that he floated wasn't just an actual let's take the focus off the sweep and let's take the focus off the Denver Nuggets getting to their first NBA finals ever. And let's put the focus back on me. I know LeBron's been accused of that, but I don't necessarily think that there was anything other than some legitimate, thought about his future going on there. And there are some tea leaves. I was listening to Mark Spears, who is phenomenal when it comes to covering the NBA. And he said, look, a lot of LeBron's inner circle wasn't just at Laker games. They were going to every playoff game on the road as well, as if they are watching maybe the last go around for LeBron. LeBron had a documentary crew follow him around the entirety of the season, I guess, kind of Last Dance style. Maybe you don't do that unless you're really thinking about it. Now, we also saw him have a near 40-point triple-double in his elimination game, but you can tell that, age is officially catching up with his body's ability to play the way he wants it to play. And I don't think it's completely fabricated that he is really thinking about retirement. I think he is thinking about it. Now, I do hope he comes back for a 21st year, because when he still wants to be a force of nature on the court, he can be that. And when it comes to the Lakers, look, they had a really good team from the trade deadline on, like the second best record in the NBA. So what they need is to finally keep a group together and play with each other to develop the kind of chemistry that, you can't just put together overnight in any basketball league, from the NBA to the YMCA. Teams that stick around and have some cohesion are always a superior basketball team. Another point guard, upgrading D'Angelo Russell defensively, upgrading Dennis Schroeder is something, another guard who can shoot, and making sure Anthony Davis is always dialed in and wanting to play hard is part of that process. I thought Darvin Ham did a really good job in year one. Again, more experience for him now next time they see the postseason. But when you're involved with LeBron, all things revolve around him first and foremost. So his decision as to his future is obviously where this whole thing begins or ends.
What is more likely? LeBron James plays with his son Bronny. He sticks around long enough to do that. Or LeBron James owns a team, maybe in Vegas, that his son Bronny plays for as he's the owner. Which is more likely?
I'm going to go with number two, because I'm completely eliminating the concept of LeBron James Jr. Bronny is an NBA player until we see it. He's got his daddy's DNA. He could get to college and find out, man, this is an awful lot different than high school, and be rendered undraftable. Who the hell knows? We can't necessarily predict. LeBron James is the single greatest delivered upon promise of any athlete in our lifetimes. We heard about him when he was 14, 15 years old at St. Vincent St. Mary's. Would we have heard of Bronny if his last name were not James? Is he truly an elite NBA talent prospect? LeBron James owning an NBA team, I believe, is a bigger likelihood than just saying, oh yeah, his son's absolutely going to play in the NBA. Remember, this league takes really talented players and reduces them to undraftable, unplayable. You're going to have a nice career in Greece all the time. So, let's see it before we just assume, yeah, he's absolutely going to be an NBA player.
We're talking to NBA analyst and media personality Damon Bruce. You can follow him on Twitter at Damon Bruce, just like it sounds.
There you
Damon, a couple of days ago, after the Nuggets sweep the Lakers, Charles Barkley starts to gas bag, and this is what he said.
I was so mad this morning I actually turned the TV off because the Denver Nuggets, who have been the best basketball team in the world all season, sweep, get to the finals for the first time. Now, Mike Malone, I love him, but he's whiny. But he does have a point.
No, he has a great point.
He has a great point.
No, a great point.
I mean, and I love Mike Malone. I cannot wait.
Michael Malone. If you really love him, call him Michael.
Okay. Michael Malone. I can't wait to get to Denver. Hey, Sean Payton, I got your text. You and Payton. We're playing Castle Pines. I'm ready.
He's all over the place.
No,
I know.
No, but I was so glad. I was so mad watching TV this morning to everything. And listen, we all love LeBron. He didn't say he was retiring yet. When he does that, we'll do all that stuff. But it should have been all about the Denver Nuggets and Joker, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, and those guys.
So, Damon, do you think it should have all been about the Denver Nuggets and no, LeBron possibly retiring, or do you disagree?
Look, the ratio was definitely off. It should never be all one thing, none of the other, as far as I'm concerned. You have a story that is a legitimate story to cover either way. Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals for the first time ever should absolutely have received more attention. Look, if the Denver Nuggets were based in LA, in New York, in Chicago, they would have absolutely gotten the headlines because it's a media market that, media entities would have invested more time in. Denver, as great and as big of a city as it is, still gets treated like a mid-major by, major networks. LeBron James, let's face it, is one of the greatest economic movers of sports coverage in our lifetimes. So I'm not surprised to see these media companies fall all over themselves to highlight what LeBron might do next over what is actually happening. A really smart person once said it's an awful lot easier to do the autopsy and prove why something died than it is to, explain why there is proof of life in the first place. Why is there life? And there's still life to the Denver Nuggets. The end of LeBron, if this really is the end, will be a massive story, but let it turn into that before you start covering it as such. And I just thought that Michael Malone did have a legitimate gripe to say that my team is legitimately, and look, I know you're based in Miami. I get it. And I love Pat Riley. I went to Pat Riley's high school, Linton High School in Schenectady, New York. I'm a big Pat Riley guy. I'm a huge Jimmy Butler guy. I love the Heat, Spoelstra, Miami Heat culture, all of it. I love all of it. And I do think that the Celtics are just a dead man walking. It's only a matter of time. I think the Denver Nuggets are like as certain about to be NBA champions as I've seen a team be in a while. They dominated the entirety of the regular season when no other team is even trying. Then they completely dominated the postseason. They have the best player on the planet in Jokic right now. Jamal Murray has absolutely figured out that two-man game and is becoming quite a star in himself. You got a 7-man rotation. They are not fooling around as a basketball team, and I think they're about to be NBA champions. And if I were their head coach, I would absolutely be pissed off about how little my team was being talked about when it's just coming off the greatest season in the history of the franchise, and you're going to focus on someone getting swept who might retire. Why don't you focus on the team that has a player who probably should have won his 3rd straight MVP over that false prophet Joel Embiid? And I understand why Malone is pissed. And if I were a Nuggets fan, I'd be really pissed.
So I am absolutely a Miami guy, a 305 Heat culture guy, Damon. And I was walking around feeling pretty good a few days ago, and then the Celtics blew out the Heat, and now they're back at the Boston, Garden. and I'm feeling not so pretty good. So what's going to happen next in that series?
There is absolutely no, I don't know when it ends, but it will end with a Miami Heat NBA Finals appearance. There is no way Jimmy Butler is about to let his team be the first team to ever blow a 3-0 lead in the NBA playoffs. His force of nature and will is greater than the collective talent of the Boston Celtics. The only thing that really changed in the series so far is in game 4, the Celtics shots actually dropped. I mean, that to me is the real big difference. They've been getting halfway decent shots off throughout the entire series. It's a make or miss league. Like, even in the playoffs, it's still a make or miss league. When they make that many threes, when they hit that many buckets, any team is a tough team to beat. But I just think that Miami has got it on Boston. Even if Boston picks up a second game, they got to go back to Miami. And if you're telling me Miami couldn't win a game 7 on the road, well, then how did they win games 1 and 2? They can absolutely do it. I think that I want Jimmy Butler in the NBA Finals. I love Jimmy Butler. He is everything that is right with basketball on both ends of the court. He's phenomenal to watch. I enjoy watching just Jimmy Butler more than I enjoy watching the entirety of the Boston Celtics. So I'm just being selfish here at this point. That's what I want, and I do think it's going to happen. And if not in game 5, game 6, Miami in 6. Let's just call it that.
Damon Bruce, at Damon Bruce on Twitter, NBA analyst, longtime sports radio host in the Bay Area. Damon, I got to go back to this Charles Barkley, the quotes about, the media this, the media that, the media should be talking about the Denver Nuggets. And I'm thinking, you are the NBA media. You are the standard bearer at Inside the NBA for coverage. And your co-host, Shaq, once said this season he didn't know who Rui Hachimura was because it's not my job to watch the Washington Bullets play or no players on their team. And I'm thinking that's sort of in line with the people that only want to talk about the Lakers or the Warriors or the Celtics. Your own show is preaching that. Not that the Wizards were a factor this year, right? The Nuggets clearly were, but the Denver Nuggets aren't exactly the Boston Celtics in terms of history and tradition and fan base across the league. So and I love Barkley and I love Shaq, but I am having a hard time squaring the complaints from an Inside the NBA crew where Shaq said, I don't know who Rui Hachimura is because I don't know any Washington Bullet players.
The segment, who he play for, is funny.
Yeah.
It is when it happens. But the truth is that show has, and I know it's still got a lot of fans out there, that show has absolutely outlasted. It's become a parody of itself. There is no legitimate effort to cover the NBA as much as there's a legitimate effort to just be, the 3 guys that you watch before and after the game because they're going to say something outlandish and they're going to have a stupid graphic. And if you tweet the show, maybe your Twitter handle gets up there. Look, the reason why, and I hope everyone watching will check me out this morning at 2 Eastern, 11 Pacific. It's when I go live on my YouTube page, Damon Bruce Plus. One of the reasons why I think I'm really good at what I do is because I am all done wasting my time talking about what I do and don't like about the media. Screw sports media. Can't everyone see that half the people who have been, employed by sports media have either been laid off or underpaid or underused, and they just take people who are glory hounds and fetch attention and they throw them in front of the camera, and that's their job. The job of that show is not to cover the NBA in any legitimate way anymore. It's to just keep eyeballs on Charles Barkley. And I will always love Charles Barkley, but I liked him more as a player than an analyst because I'm about the games. I really don't care about all the bullshit that is being served before and after games. I don't watch a lot of pre or post game because it's normally horrifically inadequate. I'm here for the sports. I'm here because I like the games. I'm here because I like players. I don't want to talk about meta problems about how Denver is not covered enough. That's not why I'm here covering sports myself. I cover sports for the results, for the process, for the players, for championships. That's what I'm into. The constant, breathless over-analysis of media, either, lapdog licking up what some other media member is saying or trying to just crap all over how another media entity or member talks. Like, I'm tired of it. Sports media, covering sports media is like one of my least favorite topics in the world. It really is. Like, here's what I deeply suggest. Turn that crap off. Just walk away from it if you don't like it. There is an off button. There is a universe of other things to do, read, watch, listen to, download podcasts. Download the Damon Bruce Plus podcast. You will find an awful lot of interesting stuff that isn't just the NBA, jerking off LeBron at all times.
Damon Bruce, NBA analyst, as he mentioned, at YouTube page, Damon Bruce Plus. You can check him out. What time does your show start again, Damon?
We go live at 11 Pacific, Monday through Friday, and then it's YouTube. You go live whenever you want. So, but we always do a daily show at 11, 2 o'clock Eastern, and I hope an awful lot of your audience will check it out, like it, subscribe, and I can't believe here I am at 48 years old saying smash that like button, but this is now the world we live in.
Yeah, I have to say it every day. In fact, if you're watching our show right now, I'll say smash that like button.
Smash that like button. Hit it with your forehead.
Absolutely. Boom. Damon Bruce, no shortage of opinions and strong ones. Damon, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it.
A real pleasure to be with you. Thank you, guys.
It is interesting, Armando. I'm fascinated with sports media. I disagree with Damon on. I think it's just interesting to talk about the ideology behind it and sort of how media is covered. I'm a fan of Inside the NBA, but he does bring up a good point. I'm a fan of Inside the NBA or a show like that because I just like to watch Charles Barkley on television give an opinion, or I like to watch his interaction with Shaq. I don't necessarily tune in to get, the ins and outs of the Milwaukee Bucks bench when I tune into the show. I'm tuning in for personality.
That's a great something that I want to address, but let me ask you a question first.
Okay.
Off of this interview. Do I have a freaking sign on my forehead that says 305 or that says South Florida?
It's the ocean behind you, Armando. It's your screensaver behind you, your backdrop.
He's like, I know you're based in South Florida.
Yeah.
Where? How do you know this?
Yeah, it's funny too. I feel like you're kind of a mark for our guest on this show. They come on immediately. It's Armando Salguero is Mr. South Florida. You are the guy of South Florida, Armando. You're the card carrying South Beach person at OutKick. Everyone associates you with South Florida, nothing else.
I think it's because I'm Cuban. I think that's it.
Racial profiling.
Cubans live in Miami. That's it. You're Cuban. You live in Miami.
This is racial profiling, is what you're saying. Our guests are engaging in this. Yeah.
I have no other answer for it. I believe that's it.
The audience can decide for themselves, right? I mean, we don't even have to say it. We put the facts out there. The audience can lead themselves to their own conclusion on this.
By the way, about the media, covering the media, this is a true story, Chad. So 1 year at the NFL owners meeting, and this was over 30 years ago, Don Shula is walking down the hall of some ritzy owners meeting hotel, and he sees one reporter talking to another, and he goes by them and he goes, look at that. One NFL source talking to another NFL source. That's what that is. And just keeps on walking.
I like that.
So
that's good.
Yeah, that's what coaches and players think of media.
Well, look, we do what we want here at OutKick. So even though Damon Bruce has the opinion that it's stupid to talk about media, we're going to talk about media right now. That's what we're going to do. Pat McAfee is joining ESPN, Armando. I think it's a good move for ESPN. It's interesting given the, $7 billion or whatever it is in layoffs they've got to go through with Disney. 7,000 jobs, I know, is the number that's going to be let go at Disney and ESPN and specifically. I think it's also a little naive, and you worked at ESPN, but at any major company, any media corporation, when you leave doing something individually on your own, sole proprietor, and you take a job with a major media company, things are going to change. I'm not saying this to say that ESPN's trying to change all the content and everything Pat McAfee does. I believe they really like the guy and want him to do his show. But there are certain things he may get into now that could be taboo for a sports league partner. Oh, I don't know, say the NFL for ESPN. And things may change a little bit with him, even though if he's going in with the best intentions and ESPN as well, that it's not going to change. Armando, what do you make of this move for Pat McAfee and what it signals for him and ESPN?
So for ESPN, this isn't the first time that they go out and try to find a dynamic talent and kind of shoehorn him or her into a spot. They did it with Rush Limbaugh years ago. That lasted about 10 seconds. They tried to do it with the Barstool guys. That lasted about 15 seconds. And now they're trying to do it with Pat McAfee and a show that has many F-bombs. Let's just be honest here.
Yep.
They are replete with words that will never be able to be aired on ESPN. So it'll be interesting to see how that works and how the dynamic of that works. But you know what? That's ESPN's prerogative. They can try to experiment. They can try to do whatever they want to improve their product, and they think that Pat McAfee will indeed improve their product. Is it going to work? I don't know. Now, I understand people who are getting laid off making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year are a little upset, more than a little, that they're going for reasons of keeping the budget down, and Pat McAfee is going to make with 8 figures. I get it, but that's envy. And that's a little, former employee anger. I'm not really moved by that a whole lot.
Yeah, they're still cutting costs. They've decided to invest in talent, the talent they deem worthy of an audience. So they're going to spend with McAfee. I'm with you on that. I've got no big issue with that on ESPN. And people that are complaining about it, I understand it, but also I hate this phrase, but in this case, it's true. It is what it is. Here's the other part that you bring up. The one thing McAfee said in his release about it was, nothing changes, just a lot fewer F-bombs. Well, that is one thing that changes, right? You're announcing the tenor of the show is going to change. I'm reminded of a line in Major League where Harry Doyle, the great Bob Ueckers, playing the play-by-play voice of the Cleveland Indians, and he says GD during a broadcast, and he says it all the way out, and his color commentator says, well, you can't say GD on air. This happened with Pat McAfee on the McAfee cast of a college football playoff game. I'm up in Nebraska at my in-laws watching the game, and I'm watching the McAfee cast, and one of his guys drops a GD bomb during the ESPN2 or ESPNU or wherever it was on the show, and McAfee jumped in. It was funny. He said, well, we can't say that now that we're on television, so good job, buddy, and kind of makes fun of his friend on it. But that's just an example of things that will have to change. So I'm interested to see the experiment, see how much it changes. I think the one difference, though, Armando, when you bring up Rush Limbaugh, Barstool Sports, Pat McAfee's pretty apolitical. I don't know that he dives into politics much. That will help him, I think, with ESPN right now, as opposed to Rush Limbaugh. And he didn't insult Sam Ponder's kid. That's why Barstool Sports got let go. It wasn't because of all the other stuff with women and everything, right? It was they posted something and said something awful about Sam Ponder's child, and then Sam Ponder complained about it, and they were fired after one episode. So the relationship with College Game Day also maybe helps him. I'll be watching. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing goes.
And apparently Max Kellerman will be the odd man out. The Max Kellerman, I don't even know the name of his show. It's, what is it, Get Live or Right Up or something?
Well, he's now, I was flipping through this morning, and it's amazing you bring him up because I wouldn't have even known. I happened to be flipping through. I turned it on. I was trying to watch a little bit of SportsCenter early this morning, and it was on maybe the main ESPN, but he's on a show that's just like 3 initials. It's him, Keyshawn Johnson, and maybe Jason Williams, but it's their 3 initials together. That's like their ESPN radio show that's also on television. But I wouldn't have known that had I not just been flipping through the channels this morning. So good timing.
No, I think
good timing by
he's
you,
got
Armando.
an afternoon show, doesn't he? I think
I think you're right. I believe that show continues. Yeah.
Look, we're in the industry and we have no idea what the hell.
Well, eventually, right?
So
it all
needs to be replaced.
Yeah, and it all kind of blends together. You know, like I think his show in the morning and his show in the afternoon. Like to me, it's not a knock at Max Kellerman as a talent. I don't always agree with him. I don't always agree with anyone though. Also, but I feel like all that stuff sort of blends in. Don't At Me Awards. This is something Dan does, I believe, daily. Not quite sure. But Armando, you had some facts about Stan Kroenke that sparked something in that brilliant South Florida mind of yours about something we should discuss about ownership in sports. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into some Don't At Me Awards. This is from the mind of South Florida's finest, Armando Salguero. We'll get into it when we come back. This is Don't At Me on the OutKick Network.
So Jake Bird is a reliever for one of the worst teams in baseball, the Colorado Rockies, who are just horrible. And apparently this middle reliever who was called up for called up to the big leagues for the first time this year. So he's toiled and worked his butt off. Decided he was going to pull a little old school, going to date myself, Al Hrabosky, and challenge and act like an idiot on the mound because he got an out. He did that against the Phillies. And in doing so, Bryce Harper took exception and went basically to the Rockies bench and said, let's fight. And I love it. I think it's awesome. I love, I don't know. I just love stuff because in baseball, there's a lot of fake tough guys. There's a lot of fake tough guys who talk the game, and then there's the tough guys are actually the guys that don't talk tough for the most part, like Pedro Martinez or Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan never said anything. He just threw 107 and put it in your ribcage if he didn't like you. Pedro would knock you on your ass at the drop of a dime. But I love that. I love guys like that. I love guys that are real and authentic. And Bryce is clearly a leader. And I since the day I met him I think I met him when he was like 12. It seems like his first year in the big leagues. He's always been a guy who's been vocal, but he plays the game and he's good. And the other stuff is the chromey stuff that's the modern day game and what they love and all the things that go with that. But the guy plays hurt, plays as hard as he can. And I think he gives it everything. And I loved it. I thought it was a great thing. I thought it was a good thing for the Phillies who need a little kick in the ass. And then there was he got ejected. Bird got ejected. Rockies won the game 4-0 to avoid a sweep. But none of that stuff matters. That's kind of the thing that you, I don't know about rally around, but it just cements the guys.
It's the Don't At Me Awards, maybe the Damn Awards. Maybe they combine it all together. Not sure, but Dan Dakich is not here. I'm Chad Withrow filling in for him on Don't At Me on the OutKick Network. Armando Salguero, as we've discovered today, maybe the most South Florida guy separate of, I don't know, Pat Riley. Armando's certainly a lot cooler than Pat Riley. He is co-piloting, doing a terrific job today. Armando, this has been fun. We're not done yet. We're in the home stretch now. We've got 27 minutes left in the show, but this has been a fun experiment hosting with you today. And it's not our first rodeo. We've done this before as well.
Yeah, so I am a South Florida guy, but I was on time for the show.
You were. And I appreciate that.
Every time we come back from break, I've been on time. I've been here. So that South Florida tradition has gone by the wayside where, 20 minutes late to everything because we're cool like that, man. We're just cool like that.
You were definitely cool like that. And I feel like the only reason I was asked to host today is because as the father of 2 young children, our bosses knew I'd be awake in time and that I could be down here in time because I'm a morning person naturally because I have to be. So this is no testament to my talent either. This is just, Chad's probably going to be awake so he can come in and host the show today. Much like Dan Dakich, I take it as a morning person as well.
Also, you are the dad of 2 young children, so you are capable of dealing with me and the way that I think.
That's right. Someone's got to be the heavy. Someone's got to come in and be the adult in the room, and I'm trying to do that the best I can. I did like this idea, Armando. You were sparked by some stats on Stan Kroenke and his ownership of multiple pro sports teams, and we decided to come up with a list and a conversation on best owners in sports. Now, I think this is a good comparison here simply because you went with all-time owners. I narrowed mine down to just active owners on this list, but give us the idea behind this and what you discovered with Stan Kroenke and some of the things he's accomplished here recently.
No, I mean, the guy, he's won a bunch of championships. The Rams won a championship. Some of his other teams have won championships. He's a billionaire. He built SoFi Stadium, although other owners helped him do it. And I'm sure he's not very popular in St. Louis, where he, relocated the Rams back to Los Angeles. But it made me wonder, so who really are the great owners of our time? And in compiling this list, I got to tell you, there are just some things that I will not allow on my list. Okay, Chad?
Okay.
So no Russian oligarchs. If you're a Russian oligarch, you cannot be on my great
off the
ownership
list. Mikhail Provorov or whoever, off the list. Gone.
So Chelsea's Abramovich, you're out of here, brother. You cannot be super pro-China. I'm not. It's my list, and I don't want pro-China people on it.
Okay.
So Tillman Fertitta of the Houston Rockets, remember that he shut the general manager up, and that was
Daryl Morey was shut up because he spoke out. He dared to speak out against China. Yep.
So Fertitta, don't call me Fertata. He's off. You cannot have guys that haven't won. You got to win championships.
Okay.
So while George Steinbrenner might be on my list, Hal Steinbrenner, you got no shot, brother. You got no shot.
This will be called the Hal exception. In the rules of Armando's list, this is the Hal exception to the rule.
You were in the family, but you weren't running the show, and you're not responsible, so you're not on the list.
Congrats on being born to a great man, but you have not accomplished the winning that great man accomplished yet. So you're off the list. Got it.
You're absolutely. It's a succession thing.
Yes.
You're not that guy.
You're not serious people. I love you very much, but you're not serious people. As Logan Roy told all of his kids, this is what we're saying about Hal Steinbrenner.
Right. So here are the people that are on my list, right? So the Rooney family. They've owned the Steelers from their inception, or basically from their inception, way before you and I were ever born. And they're just the most stable, the most well-run, the most outstanding NFL franchise that you can put on the field. And unlike a lot of these other NFL franchises, it's a family-owned business still. So I gotta love the Rooney family. Number 4, Walter O'Malley. So the Brooklyn Dodgers, LA Dodgers. First of all, he took baseball to the West Coast. He took baseball to Los Angeles. And I get it. There's a lot of people in Brooklyn that don't love Walt O'Malley. Okay, I get that. But the fact of the matter is, it was the right move. The fact of the matter is, he was the man in charge when Branch Rickey brought in Jackie Robinson. They won 13 pennants and 4 World Series. So there's something to be said about that. Toronto Maple Leafs owner Conn Smythe is number 3 on my list. You know that trophy that they award when everything is, really good and you've won a lot and people are giving you that big trophy? What is that trophy named?
It is the Conn Smythe Trophy.
Yeah, he was pretty good at what he did. So Conn Smythe. The Buss family, number 2. Jerry Buss. The Lakers, once upon a time before the LeBron James fiasco, they were, the elite ball club in the National Basketball Association. And I know New Yorkers are going to say the Knicks, and I know Boston Celtics fans going back to the 50s are going to say the Celtics. The Buss people.
Well, New York people should not be saying the Knicks, by the way, first off. I hope they're not saying that because it's the Celtics and the Lakers. That is one. That's 1 and 2 for sure. Are you watching Winning Time on HBO with the Buss family? Have you seen the show on HBO, Winning Time?
I haven't.
Really good. Well, that got me very interested in the Buss family. So I like this selection for that reason.
Very good. So, and by the way, the New York, you don't remember Dave the Busha?
Oh, I do. I remember well. Phil Jackson on that team also. Those were some good teams in the early back-to-back championships in the was it 72-73? I think in the early 70s the Knicks won back-to-back championships. Good teams.
You're not mocking me for my fake New York accent?
No, I didn't. First off, I didn't even know what it was. It was so bad. I wasn't quite sure.
That
could have been Eastern European for all I know. I wasn't quite sure what accent you were going with on that one.
Well, in South Florida, we call them Dave the Busher. So,
a little it was a little half Boston, half New York. I feel like is what you were going with. You sounded a bit like Ben Affleck in Good Will Hunting, also mixed with a New Yorker.
I can't even do a good Cuban accent, and I'm Cuban, so whatever. So
you either have an ear for those things, Armando, or you don't. Right? With impressions, you can hear someone a few times and pick it up, or you just don't have it at all.
That's not one of my great gifts. Sorry. So we agree on the Buss family, right? They were the thing. Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, well, and they also
what's his name? Magic, whatever.
They bought what at the time was a depreciating. And the show Winning Time on HBO really gets into this, but they bought what was a depreciating asset in a divorce proceeding from the previous owner and turned it into the hottest, coolest thing in the sports universe, with getting stars to sit courtside, the Laker girls. I mean, it was it's not just a really good at hiring good basketball people and paying for good players and drafting well. It's the whole thing. It's turning the Lakers were not that thing until Jerry Buss took over and made it in a star-studded town a star attraction. So having seen this, I'm upset that I didn't put the Buss family on my list because this is a good one.
So you ready for number 1?
Yep.
Number 1. Number 1, Jerry Jones. And you're going to kind of go, Jerry Jones? Really? Dallas Cowboys? Not international? They are actually international. They are actually America's team. Jerry Jones bought the Dallas Cowboys in 1989 for $140 million. They're worth about $8.7 billion with a B today. Jerry Jones did one thing that I really hated. He got the NFL at the time that Coke was the overall NFL beverage sponsor of the NFL. He went with Pepsi. And he thumbed his nose up at the NFL and went with Pepsi. Guess who the NFL beverage sponsor for the NFL is today? It's Pepsi. Why? Because Jerry Jones was making money hand over fist and decided, hey, this guy's smart. Let's do what he does. He built a monolith of a stadium, AT&T Stadium, which is just, it is still, to me, of all the NFL stadiums that I visited, that is the most impressive. That place is just wow. It just is amazing. Plus, they feed the media before and after the game and at halftime, and they serve alcoholic beverages, and it's really good. And also, he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So Jerry Jones, he gets my nod.
Jerry Jones also will appear on my list. I like your list a lot, Armando. And you, of course, went all time. I'm going current ownership in sports. I'll give just a quick, because I liked how you laid out the rules of yours. I'll give out a couple quick rules on mine. One, all of my owners are American owners because we're in America, and that's what I went with on that. So no international owners on mine, just based on top of my mind ownership groups or owners that immediately came to mind. I'm going to be very NFL heavy, NFL centric. Why? Because we all know the NFL owners. Why is that? Because NFL is king, and the billionaire owners of the NFL are their own set of celebrities outside of other sports. You can go through a bunch of Major League Baseball teams, and I can name them off right now, and no one would have a clue who owns those teams. Same goes for NBA teams. Same goes for NHL teams. So I go with majority NFL owners on my list. I did not have the you have to have one big exception on this, and I'll get into that with a couple of them. But most of mine have one to some extent, some greater than others. So I'll get into my list. Number 5, Steve Ballmer of the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, to go against Armando's list, I'm guessing Steve Ballmer probably loves China because he's a former CEO of Microsoft. So I didn't factor the China piece into this. This guy probably worships at the altar of all things Beijing, if I had to guess. So that's a strike against me for Armando's list. Here's, though, why I like Steve Ballmer. He's genuinely enthusiastic about his Clippers team, and I like that. Mark Cuban's another one that came to mind, but I think Steve Ballmer is an exception for one big reason. I admire the guy that in an age of public funding for every stadium, arena, facility, this dude just bought the LA Forum and the surrounding land in Inglewood and is building his own arena, the Intuit Dome. And I drove right past it when we were there for the Super Bowl a year ago. Armando was the Super Bowl that year as well. Incredible to see what he's doing all with his own money. Now, you got to have Steve Ballmer money to be able to accomplish this. But I do like the fact that an owner just said, you know what, I'm going to own the whole thing. I'm going to buy the land. I'm going to build it. And I'm going to make all of the money that this new facility in the greater Los Angeles area will bring in. So I love that about Steve Ballmer. There are some stately families in the NFL, and I had to include 2 of them on this. The Mara family and John Mara with the New York Giants. Armando, you would know better than I on this, but the Mara family, and one I'm going to get to that you got to as well, I feel like when you say that name, Mara or Rooney, there's a certain dignified quality about it of how to conduct yourself in ownership of a team and be respectful. Am I wrong on that with the Maras?
No. And, when you talk to people within certain organizations, some of them mock their owners, and rightfully so. New York Giants people do not mock Mara or Tish. They're held reverentially in the minds of the people that they employ, because they know that they're working for serious people who know what they're doing, who have the game best interest at heart, and who have their organization's best interest at heart. The Mara family, absolutely a great choice by you.
Number 3, and I'm agreeing with you on this one, Jerry Jones. Jerry's the man. I've always loved any chance we get on our show to interview him. Always fascinating. You always learn something. A guy who is a driving force, not just for the Dallas Cowboys and that brand and the business of the Cowboys, which he certainly has been. The man has basically created a city around his stadium of high school football and other venues around it. He's created a whole infrastructure around that. But he's driven the league forward since he became an owner in 1988 or 89 or whenever it was, when he bought the Cowboys for what would now be considered dirt cheap based on what their valuation is as a franchise. Love Jerry Jones. Love what he stands for as far as being that into the winning aspect of it. people can criticize his involvement in personnel and all that. I don't really care. He's one of the top owners in the history of sports. Number 3 on my list. Robert Kraft, this is one, Armando, that to me is almost strictly about the winning and the business-like approach and how he's allowed Bill Belichick to run that business-like approach. Tom Brady had a bit of a hand in that and all the Super Bowls as well with Robert Kraft. You may disagree on this one, but Robert Kraft seems to be a guy, if you just talk to people that cover the league, players around the league, seems to be universally known as, oh, he's a really good owner and really cares about his players and coaches. True or false?
No, true. And you got to remember where the Patriots came from before Robert Kraft. I remember the Patriots were a joke of a franchise playing in a place called Sullivan Stadium that had metal bleachers, metal seats like, high school stadiums do or used to even. And so Robert Kraft, and plus Meek Mill approves. You're good. Meek Mill approves. You and Meek Mill.
Well, it's good news because I actually consulted Meek Mill on this list, so that's good. And he told me Robert Kraft. I was going back and forth on Robert Kraft and Jerry Jones 2 or 3, and Meek Mill was the tiebreaker. He told me that Robert Kraft should be number 2, so I put him down as number 2 on my list. The Rooney family's number 1 for me. There's always this story that I've heard a bunch of times from different people about Mr. Rooney going through the cafeteria in the facility during training camp with all the media members, the rest of the team, and everyone else, and how unique that was for an NFL owner to be doing that. And that is just sort of stands for what that organization is about. Armando, there are few places that carry the identity of the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Where they draft a guy, they hire a coach, or anything that goes on within the organization, think that's a Steeler move, or that's a Steeler type player. And to me, that's the Rooney family that started all of that.
No, I was rummaging through my desk here because let me tell you a true story. I am on the Pro Football Hall of Fame Selector Committee, and a few years ago, we voted Jerome Bettis into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I got a letter from one of the Rooneys thanking me for helping to get, Jerome Bettis into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Thanking me personally, offering to help me in whatever he could the next time I was in Pittsburgh. I'm thinking, whoa, dude, I get Permanente Brothers? You're going to help me get Permanente Brothers? But that is class personified. He didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Not many people do. In fact, none do. That's the class of the Rooney family.
Armando, what are you working on right now at OutKick.com? Can you give us a hint at what may be to come, or is it all completely confidential and top secret?
It is top secret, and if I told you, I'd have to do what to you? I'd have to kill you.
Yeah, I don't want to die. Not yet. I've got plenty of work to do, so I'm not going to ask again about what you're working on at OutKick.com.
It's either that or I got nothing.
Yeah.
You pick.
Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to find out in this break what Dan has coming up tomorrow or who's hosting the show for Dan. We're going to get all that information. Armando will not reveal his sources, and he will not reveal whatever the heck he's working on at OutKick.com. But what we will do when we come back is look ahead to what's to come on Don't At Me. It won't be me. I don't think it'll be Armando. You better stay tuned for 1 to 2 minutes, and we're going to let you know. We're all going to find out together what's happening on the Friday edition of Don't At Me. That's next. I told you, 1 minute, 2 minute break. That's it. We're back. Don't at me. I'm not Dan Dakich. I didn't play at Indiana. I didn't coach at Indiana. I didn't coach college basketball. I'm Chad Withrow. I played high school basketball. I played fraternity, quarterback, and flag football at the University of Tennessee. My resume is basically the same as Dan's, I promise. Armando Salguero, he's covered the NFL for years. He's in South Florida right now. He joins us. I teased earlier that we are fueled by hatred, both Armando and I. Whenever we get the least bit of haterade, we drink that haterade and we repurpose it for production. Well, Armando received some haterade from a tweeter after his last appearance on Don't At Me with Dan Dakich. Tim says, please stop having Armando on. He is terrible. Eleanor, 5 Super Bowls, 2 wins, 9 AFC championships, 4 quarter comebacks. Name Elway's, says Elway's, but name, it is Elway's. Never mind. Name Elway's receivers and running back in first 3 Super Bowls. Armando, you're going to have to explain the context. I think this is about Jim Irsay's top 5 quarterback list that did not include Peyton Manning, but did include John Elway, a guy who did not want to play for the Colts franchise and worked his way out of that. What was your response to this hatred from this man on Twitter? And, by the way, welcome back to another Don't At Me. And you'll also be joining me on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow weekly. So much to the chagrin of this tweeter, you will be on the OutKick Network moving forward.
I feel bad for Tim. Dan asked me on Monday what I thought of Jim Irsay's list. And I told him not only would I not put Elway on there, but, I mean, again, wearing the South Florida sign that I do on my forehead, I said I'd put Dan Marino ahead of John Elway on a all-time quarterback list. And Tim, who obviously, isn't a fan of moi, went at me on Twitter, and I just looked it up to see if he was right, because maybe there's a possibility I'm wrong. It happens a lot, and I don't run away from it, but not this time, Tim. Sorry. So John Elway, he went to a bunch of Super Bowls. He lost a bunch of Super Bowls. So there's that. Dan Marino went to only 1. He lost that one to Joe Montana. I think Elway lost to, was it Doug Williams? He lost to
the 49ers. He lost to the 49ers and Joe Montana also.
Right.
Was that year 2 that Dan Marino made it to the Super Bowl? It was very early in his career when they lost the 49ers,
yes,
right?
Year 2. So John Elway in his career, he averaged 18.75 touchdowns per season. In 16 seasons, he averaged, let's say, 19 touchdowns a season. He averaged 14 interceptions per season. His career passing percentage was 56.9. He went over 60% only 3 times in 16 seasons. That would get him run out of the league now. At age 37 and 38, he did win back-to-back Super Bowls. That was amazing. In 1997, the first year he won that first Super Bowl, he threw for an average of 227 yards a game. Something else happened that first year that he won the Super Bowl. Terrell Davis rushed for 1,750 yards, which was second in the NFL. He rushed for 15 touchdowns, which was first in the NFL, and he averaged 4.7 yards a carry, which was third in the NFL. The next season, John Elway again led the Broncos to the Super Bowl win in a year where he averaged 215 passing yards a game. And in a year where Terrell Davis rushed for 2,008 yards and 21 touchdowns, both leading the NFL. And he averaged 5.1 yards a carry, also leading the NFL. So I'm wondering if John Elway won back-to-back Super Bowls in leading the Broncos, or was he part of the Terrell Davis show? I'm just wondering. Compared to Dan Marino, shall we? So Dan Marino threw for over 4,000 yards 4 times. was the most in the NFL at the time.
Pretty good.
He threw for 5,000 yards, 5,084 yards in 1984, which shattered all records. That it was like Babe Ruth hitting 60 home runs in 2027. That's what that was. He had years of 48 touchdown passes, 44 touchdown passes, 30 touchdown passes twice. The 48 and the 44, the next closest guy was like 18 touchdown passes behind him, and no one had ever gone to those heights. Back in the day when receivers got mugged by defensive backs. He had a higher pass percentage than Elway. He threw for more yards than anybody went by the time he was retired. And his 420 career touchdown passes was more than anyone when he retired. So Tim, sorry, dude, you're wrong. I'm right. And here I am. I'm back on the show.
He's back.
It's unbelievable.
That right there is how you get it done. That is how you get the job done right there from Armando Salguero. We get the last word on this show. Armando got the last word. I think that is case closed. The door is shut now on Tim. Armando wins that one. Dan Dakich says, don't at me. You can at us, at Armando Salguero. It's at Armando Salguero, right? Very simple on Twitter is where they can at you,
Yeah.
right? It's great. It's so rare you get just the name of someone, so I'm always perplexed by that. I'm at the Chad Withrow. Hit us up there. It's been a fun day on the show. I have gotten word that Dan will be back tomorrow, Armando, so this was just a one-day holdover for Dan to come back from the Harvard graduation, so I'm sure his viewers are looking forward to that. Armando, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate you doing this. Again, not the first time we've hosted a show together, but always fun getting your insight and your keen wit that you bring to this show. So really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Chad. See you later today on Hot Mic.
We're out of here. Remember, don't at Dan Dakich. Never. Don't at him. Don't do it. Don't think about it. Thank you for being a part of the show today. Goodbye.